Hi there, hope you're well. In the workshop this week, well, we're under the saw wall where I'm going to be fitting some extra basic storage. Oh. So yeah, like a lot of people, I watched Michael Alm's workshop tour recently. I'll link that up down below. Some great ideas in there. I'm definitely going to be borrowing some of those as I get further into this workshop makeover. But one of the things I want to do today though is just some simple basic storage underneath the saw wall there. Michael also talked about something which I hadn't come across before, first order retrievability. This is an Adam Savage thing that Adam's talked about, and I'll link up that video as well. Adam and Michael both have these trolleys where everything is easily and readily accessible, and that sounds like a great idea. It's not what I want down there, but it's definitely what I'm going to be doing when I put the set of shelves and storage up here. I've got other things to do here. I'm going to get this wall opened up and get some soundproofing in there. But one of the things that Adam Savage said in his video was that he spent a couple of weeks sort of noodling around figuring out what he needed on his shop trolleys. I don't have that kind of time or luxury of space, to be honest. So what I'm decided to do is build the longer term storage under the saw wall down there as a modular thing, so I can actually move the modules in and out. So it's going to be like a 3-bay cabinet, but with pieces that come in and out on rows of holes. In fact, I need to get on and start getting this made. Let me crack on with that and I'll talk you through it as we go. The main module is going to be a box for my nailers, and I've spent a bit of time measuring them and figuring out what I want. I'm building this from whatever bits of scrap and offcuts I have in the workshop, and I'm starting with a piece of 12mm fire resistant MDF. That's what the pink tint indicates. Not because I expect them to burst into flames, but because I've had it knocking around for a couple of years and it's probably about time I used it for something. That's for the top and base. The dividers are cut from a mix of regular and MR MDF, that's the green tint, and I'm putting an angled edge on the dividers to make it easier to get at the guns. I want little cutouts in the base for the nose of the guns to sit in, but I don't want the faff of routing them out individually, so I've cut a 40mm hole in another scrap of MDF, then cut that in half and clamp that down so the cutout fits snugly around the hole saw. I've marked roughly the centre between the dividers and cut a notch so that it fits around the drill, and then I can make the cutouts quickly with the hole saw and clean them up with a bit of sanding. I've cut spaces that fit between the dividers and I'm using these to position them and then screw them in place. Incidentally, there's absolutely no issue with 12mm MDF splitting, provided you use decent quality MDF to start with, and you always drill a pilot hole. With the dividers fixed to the base and the nailers in position, I can mark the handle heights. Then use the spacers as small shelves, cut back to the right depth and simply glued in place. Notice I've cut height spacers from scrap 6mm to make this easy. These shelves will have little boxes on them for nails and staples. With a glue set I can get the top fixed on, and I'm using the remaining shelf as a spacer to get that in place. and just checking with my precision triangle that the top and base are in line before fixing it down with glue and screws. And yes, I did forget to add glue to the base dividers, thanks for noticing. I have unscrewed everything off camera and put a squeeze of glue in there before reassembling. The box ends are 6mm MRMDF just glued and stapled on. And then I can add in the final shelf. With all that put aside to dry, I've spent a bit of time cutting out some 12mm birch ply scraps for the box base and ends. The fronts are lower so I can get my fingers in there. And then cutting out and adding on the sides from 6mm birch, all simply held together with glue and a few 18 gauge brads. Once the glue's set, the boxes get a quick sand over to make them a bit more comfortable to the touch. So there we go, that's our first sort of module complete, made from whatever bits of scrap I have to hand. I've still got to put some stops in. Stop those pushing all the way back, but obviously just for little bits of nails and spares, whatever little bits and pieces I've got that relate to the individual guns. Fit in there nicely with room to grow as well if I ever add in something else. So that's the first sort of basic module made. There'll be other modules that perform other tasks. I'm going to pull everything apart again, then I can use this module as the basis for building the actual cabinet next. So that's what we're going to do. I found a length of 22mm MRMDF that'll do as the base, and I'm using the nailer box to measure out the length, then cutting it to size, adding in the divider thickness plus 3mm for a little bit of wiggle room. And I found a few other scraps of 18mm MDF, some painted, some finished, to use as the cabinet ends and dividers, and these are cut to length on the NFT. I've cut the corners off each of these as well, which will hopefully make the final unit feel a little bit more open. And then I can whack a quick coat of paint on the one divider that wasn't already white, and on the cut edges of all the others. I'm putting shelf pin holes in both faces of the middle dividers and the inside faces of the ends. That's a lot of holes, and I'm glad I've got my LR32 system to help with this. I have a simple 32mm disc attached to the rail that butts up against the end of the workpiece, and I can align the rail against my pencil mark where I want the holes to be using a simple jig that I made years ago. And then it's a straightforward, if tedious, job to cut the rows of holes. Oh, and when you get to the final hole, it's always worth making a pencil mark on the rail so you don't overshoot the next time. I want the two mid dividers to sit on the base, so I'm trimming them back by the base thickness of 22mm. And then I can start the cabinet assembly. Using the nail gun box as my spacer, I've added a 1mm packer to get the divider position, then screwed it in place. And repeating the process at the other end. Then, with a little square enough added goodness, I can attach the ends. And fix on the top, making sure the nail gun box fits okay before committing to screws into the dividers. The overall size was dictated by the space I had, and it's always comforting to find that things fit in, even if the wonky floor did need a couple of wedges. I want one of the shelves to have hanging space for pliers and grips. I saw this on the Adam Savage build. They just hang off a bar, and I found a length of 6mm steel in the clear out, so I'm cutting a piece of plywood to size, then marking up and cutting out a section of the shelf. First with the plunge saw, and then at the bandsaw. And while we're at the bandsaw, I'm cutting the cutout waste in half and gluing it onto the shelf, having trimmed it to the shelf depth. With a glue set, I'm drilling a 6mm hole in both ends, checking that my steel bar fits okay, then fitting it and cutting it to size. And yes, even with the hammers back there, I might need to add a pin or a screw just to stop this shelf from tipping because of the weight of all the stuff on the front. So there we are. Anyway, I think that's it. Pretty much done for now. Obviously, it's not finished by a long stretch. These sort of things are always going to be a moving target where you change them around and add to them as you go. But I'm pretty happy with how it's gone so far. The main sort of centre section was the one that I really had planned to start with the nail gun module, shelves for the trays with screws and what used to be my hardware install kit. I need to update that, just keep the bare minimum of sort of workshop hardware in there, and a section for PPE and first aid, of course, and then all the other bits and pieces just around. And I think they've found their level quite well. As I say, the reason I did it with shelves and rows of holes is so that they can be changed and adapted, and the same with the modular aspect of it. I can put the nail gun section anywhere, but I think I'm pretty happy with it where it is. The only thing I've changed really, which I didn't plan on at all, is to put a sustainer in there, and that's because it's got my camera bits and pieces in it, and because of that I want to keep it separate from all the others. I do keep a few little, mostly audio bits and pieces here, so it's good to have them in a relatively, you know, closed lid box is the words I'm struggling for. But otherwise, no, we're doing okay with this so far. It'll be added to and amended along the way, and of course I'll keep you updated on that. But that's kind of it for this one. Thank you so much for taking a look. Thank you, as always, to my amazing Patreon supporters and YouTube members whose feedback on the bits and pieces that I feed them on the behind the scenes and over the shoulder sort of videos that I do for them really helps me to not just keep the lights on here, but helps influence the public-facing videos that I do as well. So thank you so much to all of my Patreon supporters and YouTube members. Thank you, everybody, for taking a look, but I'll call that one done, and I'll see you again. All right, take care.